What's up? It is a night on Shabbos. I am streaming. And there's no one else here. Everybody else is Shomer. Hello. 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 No stream for Doug today. Blocked. Not allowed. Not allowed to do a stream. Oh, I'm allowed to do a stream. Somebody's allowed to get in here. Who is it? Who just came in? Who's that? 2. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who is your daddy and what does it do? I'm Detective Joe Campbell. Hello. What's up? What's up? Going on a little diesel run here. My truck's fucked up. If it gets really fucked up, I'll probably just buy like a used truck and then convert this one to burn wood. And do a wood burning conversion. I'm trying to figure out something. I'd like to do hydrogen too. Hydrogen would be cool. We had more people and then they left. We got three individuals. What's up, Eli? TN, that can mean anything. That can mean you're a tennis player. That can mean Eli the tennis player. Maybe you can give me some pointers. The hardest thing about tennis is not looking gay while you play. I've found, typically. Just, but who knows? Acronym after acronym. So I got some emails. Regarding the slow process that's building up here, which would be that if you're not aware, we in the United States we had an election, a presidential election recently. Joe Biden won. Trump lost. The socialists are like pulling up their sleeves now. They're fixing to lay the smackdown. That's kind of where we're at with it so far. Man, I'm really getting blocked to 4 people. That's kind of crazy. 5? Okay, they let one more in. So anyway, where we're at with the election, there were, so one of the things I was trying to explain to people was that, Trump is the last president. I mentioned briefly that like prior to the election happening, I said that Trump was going to win, but that Trump wasn't going to win, and in doing so, the world government was going to take over the United States. That's what I said. And when it hadn't happened, it was kind of just like another one of those. It still hasn't happened, but the pieces are moving into place for it slowly. But when I said it, it was not at all happening. The results weren't even in yet, and people were not totally enthused by what I was saying. They were just kind of like, this seems really out there. Why would this be the case? But I wanted to kind of explain that because I started getting emails. I got particularly one. There's a gentleman asking you, saying it looks like what you were saying is happening. And then I got some other emails of video, like various video about this process of the buildup for Trump behind the scenes. To set the groundwork for this to take place. And they asked somebody asked me if I had a crystal ball or something to know that these things are going on. No, I don't have a crystal ball. I'll explain the process so that, like, maybe it'll help you kind of understand the kind of the way that I'm looking through this mouse hole. You know, the way that I'm peeking under the decking and kind of juking and jiving to get a glimpse at what is going on. So what is my mental process? Because a lot of this stuff, like when I see something and I'm like, that's what's going on. A lot of times it's just like it's just like an ignition in a chamber with some fuel and some oxygen, and it just fires. I'm just like, oh, that's it. And then I know that it's it because everything connects, right? And that's kind of, I mean, sort of the process with this, but the mental process of it is that I'm taking knowns, and then I'm taking what I'm seeing, and then I'm extrapolating between them of like, where does this jet plane go? Like, where does the jet plane go? So what do I know? I know that Donald Trump is Rothschild House. Like, Donald Trump might as well be named Donnie Rothschild Trump. He might as well just change his name to that because he's a Rothschild. At minimum, Rothschild's asset. I don't know anything about Trump's background or anything like that. I don't give a shit. As far as I'm concerned, Trump's low level, but he is a Rothschild asset, and he is the president of the United States. Now, the last time the Rothschilds had a direct asset in the White House, and all of the presidents to some degree are Rothschild assets, just based off of maneuverability, not even like consciousness, just like they don't really have a choice. Trump has a choice, and his choice is Rothschild because he's a Rothschild boy. So I already know this, and whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't really matter, because you're not going to do the work to disprove or validate what I'm saying anyway. If you don't think that it's true, then you're just going to disbelieve what I say. And if you do believe it, then you're just going to accept it, I guess, probably. You're probably not going to do the background checking to figure it out. But Trump has all you need to look at is Trump's cabinet. You can go through Trump's cabinet and look at it, and you're going to find a lot of Rothschild links. That's true of most of the administrations. It's especially true of Trump because of Trump's relationship to Israel. Man, how do we only have fucking 13 people in here by now? We have 12 people in here? Are there any comments on this bitch? There's no comments. Alright, maybe I'll just skip this shit. I'll just skip this shit and go to see a lot of new faces. I'm gonna do something interesting. I gotta get some diesel here. Hang on. We've got some diesel, and then we'll Charlie Mike this shit. People are watching Trump live. What the fuck is Trump doing? He's talking about how he's gonna save America. Probably what he's doing. Alright, hold up. We're grabbing some diesel. Okay. And I'm back. How's everybody doing? 13. Fantastic. A live rally. Okay. Live rally. It's fucking sad, man. It's sad. There's not much you can do about it. People are gonna be swallowed up by this thing. And that's the way it's gotta go. The ironic thing about it, everyone that is really emotionally driven by their loyalty to Trump, it's sad because they're so they hold on to a misplaced it's not a loyalty, it's an honor, a sense of honor that's misplaced in the wrong place, and it gets developed in the character of politicians like Trump. And then by this mechanism, this is how you guys get played. You know, like, this is how you lost the United States. And the irony of it is that all of the people that are into Trump, following Trump, are going to ultimately be the hand that delivers the United States into absolute servitude. It's going to be done by them. It's not going to be done by the left. The left would do it if it was real. It's not real. It is the antithesis to Trump and you people that are going to be the ones that are going to deliver us into absolute tyranny with a bow. That's the irony of it. And people can't see that. Just like they couldn't see before the election that I said Trump is gonna win, but he's gonna lose, and then he's gonna come back, and Trump is gonna be the last president. I said that. People didn't listen. Now it's happening. People still aren't listening. They think I have a crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball. I'll tell you what a crystal ball will tell you. Here, I'll give you some crystal ball information. Since we're learning really hard and slowly, and nobody gives a fuck, and you're pretty much all gonna have to get wiped off the fucking earth to figure anything out. That's fine. I'll give you some crystal ball here. All right, here's a crystal ball. What is going on ultimately? And I'm not talking about Trump followers. I'm talking about the people that are setting up this entire situation right now for Trump to take the United States. Let me skip it. I'm going to skip a few steps that are critical so that you have to think about it and figure it out. In the end, in the result of this, an overwhelming majority of Jews in the world are going to be murdered because of what's going on. And it's going to happen in your lifetime. Okay? I'll say that again. Because of what's going on with Trump, who is the great Jewish, the Jewish helper president that is going to help Jews, right? What is going on by the people that are doing this is going to result in 9/10 of the world's Jewish population being murdered. Women, children, and men. How about that? Is that enough crystal ball for you? That's a pretty bold statement, isn't it? That's pretty bold. You won't get predictions like that on most YouTube channels. I'll tell you exactly what you want to know in a way that you don't want to know. Now, not only it's not just going to be Jews that get murdered. It's going to be a bunch of goy. The goy that are going to get murdered is going to far outweigh the number of Jews that are going to get murdered, numerically. I guess that's just the way that it has to go. I'll say it here. I'll put it like this. A majority, there will be a greater number of Jews that will be murdered all across the entire world in a blood wave, and the Jews that die in that blood wave will far outnumber the number of Jews that will live. And the Jews that die will be innocent Jews and guilty Jews alike. And a bunch of goy are going to get murdered too. And it's going to be more violent than any other time in the history of humanity. More people will die than at any time in the history of humanity. And you will see foreigners will stand in Jerusalem, both Asiatics and Arabs, at different times. Arabs first, then the Asiatics, and they will stand in Jerusalem. That's your crystal ball right there. And to be more clear, all of it is avoidable. It doesn't have to happen that way. But because certain people won't let go, that's just good. We all have to die. We're all gonna die because people don't want to be decent. They want to grasp at straws, pretend like they're in control. Not in control. No point in trying. You're not in control. It's not gonna happen. What comes into your mind shall never come about. You shall not be as the nations, to serve wood and stone. And that is what this world serves. This world serves the wood of cellulose and the stone of silicon. I would imagine that there are two in the controllership. I would imagine there are two. I would have to guess, and guesses can always be wrong. I mean, I know nothing. I would guess that the controllers are two types. One is one that doesn't believe anything and that believes that they're going to take the ball and run with it. The other is the one that doesn't believe anything, but knows that other people believe, and so they're going to make it happen. It's just also silly, you know. I was, you know, do you guys like quantum physics, like quantum tunneling and quantum rotation, quantum space, things like that? Quantum physics, they're one of those things that it's one of those things that is a very strange, how do I describe it? It's like one of those, in a simple way. It's like, you know how, have you ever taken someone that you love, like your child or your wife or girlfriend or something like that, or just somebody that, you know, a brother that you know really well, that you know their face perfectly? And have you ever been in a situation where, I don't know, when you're a kid, you're leaning over a couch or something and they're on the floor and you're like leaning over the side of the couch and you're upside down from each other's perspectives, right? You ever seen that? And then you'll look at your brother's face upside down, and so you'll see all the features rearranged upside down, and your mind, if you catch it just right, your mind will recognize and compose the parts of the face that you normally use for recognition. It'll accept them in their out of order place, and then your brother's face will look like an alien, you know, with like a mouth on top and like eyes on the bottom, and it almost looks like one of those videos where they take like fruit, you know, like those superimposed eyes and a mouth on like a piece of fruit for video, for like YouTube videos, and blah, 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 and they'll make like funny voices and shit on the video, make the fruit talk or whatever. You ever seen that? It's kind of like that. Well, when that happens and you see a face out of order, but your brain breaks through your bias of recognition and you see it disfigured the way that it is. That's sort of the way that quantum physics are to me. So when I read about quantum physics, the latest things that I read are the phenomenon of quantum space and time, where they've determined, you know, like they're just like baffled. They've determined that what happens in the future affects the past, right? So what happens in the future affects what happened in the past. Quantum tunneling would be when you have a barrier that is blocking like whatever procedural tunneling you're doing. When you have a barrier and it's not, you know, and we're talking about like atoms here, and you can't get through the barrier, and then quantum tunneling would be when the tunneling effect continues past the barrier. So it's like it continues as if there was no barrier, but there is a barrier there. That'd be like quantum tunneling. Same thing with like quantum rotation and things like that. It's so silly how much effort we put into trying to master domains that, you know, are not under our purview, that we're not going to be able to master. And for the purpose of building up an empire to reach into the sky, which is what it is, you know. every past discovery lends to the next discovery. You write a paper on a theory of what you discovered, you put your name on it. Maybe the process will be named under you. You didn't make the process. The process was already there. Imagine the depth of continuation from the 1500s till now, until you get into like quantum mechanics. Imagine the continuation, like the long process of discovery that turns over a new leaf and then a new leaf and brings us to where we are. Imagine how many names and lives are involved in that, in their sites, like their side of the world, discovering something new, turning over a new leaf, and then writing a little paper about it and putting their name on it, like they came up with the shit. Imagine how many iterations that is. It's a lot. It's a lot of iterations. But what they fail to understand is that, number one, it doesn't end. So there is no ending to it. It will never end. Number two, they don't understand that the reason that the past is affected by the future, it's because, and the reason that's baffling is because time is a part of your creation. So time doesn't really exist at all. It exists for you in a matter of your navigation of this existence. It's not actuality. Okay, it's not ultimate actuality. It's not they're amazed by quantum mechanics when something can be done in one place and another place, and you can have like parallel or reciprocal mechanics. At least I think that's what they've come to discover so far. If they haven't discovered all of that, they will. But what they don't understand is that it's because there's no matter. I mean, matter matters, and matter is matter. So there's matter, but it's not what you think it is, right? Everything is interchangeable. So all of what we see and perceive in our senses and in matter is entirely interchangeable. And that is why, including time, and that is why the future affects the past. What they're discovering when they discover this is that they're attempting in their perspective to build a kingdom that's for their purposes. They're trying to look under the rug, and they're figuring out something that's like baffling them because they can't figure out how to use it yet. And they're trying to figure out how to use it for their purposes. That's the only reason that's baffling to them. But what they don't understand is that the future is the same as the past. And they are connected. The time is not real. It is something that we perceive by our creation in the limitations of what we're bound by. But it's not there. It's not real. Just like the space and the barrier is not real. It's what we perceive. You can compute it, you can measure it. It's not real. Just in the same way that a builder, when they're building lumber, they can measure. You can measure and cut lumber, framing all that you want with the fanciest measuring tape. You can buy the Fat Max Deluxe that has special coating on it that stays rigid over extended distances and have every advantage that you want. You will never build more precisely than if you scribe. And any framer or anyone that works with wood at all, any carpenter is going to understand that the most precise that you can be is with a scribe, which is where you take an object and you hold it up to another object in the space that's supposed to be and you scribe it. It's going to be more accurate than measurement. Why is that? Did we disconnect? Or are we still here? Good to go. In the same way that in the same way that they can't understand in quantum mechanics why why it is functioning the way that it is. They can observe what's happening. They can't understand why. It's the same way that they can't understand why it is that a color can change color. When you look at a color in comparison to something else, they can't understand why any color next to, you can change both tonality, hue, and contrast of color in perception by holding them up to one another. Now they can understand what happens. They can understand how the cones of the eye are theorized to be functioning, and how that function is determined by physical limitations of shapes of the cones, and how electrochemistry behaves in the body in order to produce and perceive ions. They can account for that, but they can't. They're baffled by it because they can't say why. Just like a person will be baffled by, why they can't understand why it's always more accurate to describe than it is to measure. Why? They have you ever heard those words that are this day was made for you, so rejoice? Have you ever heard that? Have you ever read that? It's a very wise statement. There's a lot of information in there. It's a very dense sentence that has compounded and practically infinite depth to it. Do you guys ever just sit in the dark? I sit in the dark a lot. It's easy. It can be easy to think in the dark, in silence. It can be easy to think about things that you would normally be distracted by all the things around you. To connect a little bit. Just like when you lean over the couch and you look at your brother's face when you're inverted on the couch, you're looking at each other upside down. and then your mind catches a glimpse of your brother's face out of order, where the recognized unified picture of recognition that a mind would normally see when they see a face, that can become disrupted when you're looking at something upside down, and then suddenly the features become ugly, and they become disjointed, and they become like features on an organic mass that resembles a person but does not look like your brother. It's because the day was made for you, and you don't possess beauty. You know, beauty and identification and recognition is served to you as creation, you know. Just like time is served to you as creation. It doesn't exist, okay? And it can be taken away at any moment. But it's made for you and it's served for you. And people that pursue the domination of the world and creation, I would suspect that they're not very familiar with this understanding. Because if they were, they would be a bit more cautious and terrified of the prospects of those things not being served to you. Because if you can imagine, it doesn't have to be this way. It could be that when you look at someone that you love, their features are ugly and they're disjointed and organized in a way that doesn't bring joy to you, even though they're standing right there just the same as you would recognize now. They could look just like when you look upside down at your brother on the couch, or he's laying on the floor looking up and you're on the top of the couch hanging over, and you see his face upside down, backwards. Their face is backwards. And it could be made to make a world that is very cruel. Imagine all the things that we take for granted every moment of our existence that are just laid out for us, you know, like the fact that we're given a host of a body that could just dissolve into molecules and just obliterate as we breathe faster than it does, right? The entire sense of possession could be taken away, you know, the entire sense of possession, the sense of like having a stake, of having a being able to recreate life, of having a wife and a child, to be able to produce new life and bring it into the world at what appears to be your choosing, you know. Imagine if there wasn't that at all. I mean, there are a lot of people. We're at the place now in this world where people don't think there should be so much life. You know, there are people that think that their jobs are important, not new life, and they choose to not make new life even though they could, and they are unable to even recognize how it would change their being, how it would change their heart and their perspective, and they're unable to recognize that it would be the most, especially someone who is focused on the prospect of work and development as a person, and what they see in the material world. A mind like that, a heart that is driven by that, and then chooses to not create new life. They have no idea that they are the prime example of what their experience would have garnered more reward than almost anyone else in their experience of having a child, because of the way that they look at things that way. It would have brought them more joy and fulfillment to be whole than anything else that they could have done. And they're so stubborn that and so naive that they can't even come to conceptualize that, and so they miss it. And then they forfeit that entire opportunity. It's incredible. But nothing needs to be the way that it is, like things could be so much different. They could be so much worse. I mean, if it was up to me, luckily, I would like to think of myself as a merciful person, but my mercy doesn't come close to the mercy that's afforded to us, because if it were up to me, I would have judged just based off of my life experience that the most proper thing to do would be to take away everything from everyone equally. That would have been my judgment. I would have said this is obviously we are very destructive, and it doesn't look like there's going to be much solution. So maybe we just cancel the whole show for everybody. That's what I would have judged, probably, if I was forced into a decision, right? Like if it was an ultimatum of a decision of like this has to be addressed, that would be the way that I would do it, right? Because I wouldn't be able to see, like in my limitation of understanding, I wouldn't be able to see like a path outside of that, So that's not very merciful, right? But that's where, when I'm honest with myself, that's what I would see, right? The mercy that's afforded to us is so much greater than that. Imagine how, I mean, just how terrible we are, and there's still a floor made for us to walk on. That we can go our whole lives with nothing but our physical senses, and then have enjoyment out of it. Find some sense of enjoyment out of it. Isn't that? I mean, it's incredible. That's an extreme degree of mercy. It's so merciful, And for so many people, for so many lives, so many times, there's so many mistakes. Like we make so many mistakes. We do things that are so wrong, that are not within our right to do. We abuse this, our creation here. We abuse it so heavily, and yet it's still held up. It's held up for us. It hasn't gone away. It's just incredible. Yeah, the vaccines. Now the vaccines are obviously, so there's a comment in here about vaccines and sterility. So obviously, if you didn't know this, the the vaccines, and I couldn't tell you if this vaccine that's coming up right now, if this is it or if it's another one, but the vaccines will lead to sterilization eventually. Okay. So they will lead to sterilization. And the reason that this is done this way and how it's going to be accomplished and why it's going to be is because I've already explained this. I've explained this before, but now that it's like coming to fruition and people are starting to understand and they're getting more comfortable with listening to things that I say or suggest or talk about without being so averse and like holding on to whatever it is that they had before that told them that, that's not even, what Dugan says is crazy. I shouldn't listen to it. It's crazy. Now they're kind of getting over that. And they're kind of like, seeing that reality is actually crazy and it's manifesting before their eyes in a way that they can't deny. The reason that the vaccines will lead to sterilization in eventuality is because for 60 years, your primary medical vendors in coordination with all of your hospital services, so like all the people that work at hospitals that think that they're doing good and think that they're on like, the service end of the cutting edge of science and service to humanity, all that stuff combined into one big bundle. It's no different than anything else. They don't have any control. They just have to show up for a job and do what they're told. And because of that, nobody has asked why you are doing blood samples of all the babies that are being born. Nobody's asked that. Nobody cares. They look at you like you have a dick growing off your forehead if you have a problem when you're in the hospital of having a newborn baby heel prick, getting the blood drawn for the baby to take a blood sample. They see it as like there's no reason to have any problem with that and that you should do that. It goes so far that if you're in a hospital, they will take the baby away after it's born to do that very quickly, almost immediately in some cases, before you even get a chance to stay with your baby. You know that? Nobody in the hospital, all those nurses that care so much, all those doctors that are so expert, not a single one of them has asked, why is the newborn baby screening being done? What they will say it's for a PKU test. Well, actually, what they'll say now in 2020, they will say it is for a series of screenings of potential problems, genetic problems that a baby could have. That's what the doctor will say. But what that stemmed from, what it originally was we were going to test for PKU. That's what they said. PKU. We want to test your baby for PKU. We want to see if your child has PKU. If they did have PKU, it causes problems with the breaking down of food, and it causes reaction. You have reactions in the body from common types of food. And so a baby that has PKU has to have a very specific diet, and they have to be watched for reaction to foods so that they don't die. They have to have special menus of foods, right? Certain types of foods that are very common, they can't eat. They'll have a reaction to it, right? That's what PKU is. That's how they justify the importance of it, because it's so serious that it could kill a baby, right? But the prevalence of it is about, on average, it's probably like the whole population is probably somewhere in the order of like 1 in 15,000. If you're a European, it's about 1 in 20,000 to 1 in 25,000, depending on your genetic profile. So out of 25,000 babies that are born, there may be one with a PKU, with positive. Okay? Out of 20,000, 25,000, somewhere in there. So the possibility of 1 in 20, I don't know. you could put in the comments, you could look up some things that are 1 in 25,000 in terms of probability. You can look up probabilities of 1 in 25,000 and give some equivalent examples to give the magnitude of perspective of, like what that is. Because there's a lot of places where, I mean, it's approaching like, it's not quite there. I mean, it depends. If you're in a really bad area, it could be like equivalent to murder rate, but it's, you know what I mean? It's not something that it's not logical that every baby should be tested for PKU because 1 in 25,000 babies get PKU. That doesn't make any sense. There are a lot of things that occur in a probability of 1 in 25,000 that are not being tested for, that babies are susceptible to, that are not PKU, that are not tested for, that they deal with when it comes about. So why PKU? Why is PKU such a big deal? And why did it extend from PKU into now being a smorgasbord of even more rare shit that they can cite as the reason for the testing? The reason why is because in the past 2 decades or 3 decades, starting in the 90s, some parents, they tried to acquire the blood spot samples for their kid for whatever reason. I don't know if it was just because they wanted it for like a souvenir or what, but they tried to get a hold of it and they determined that the blood sample was sold to a private DNA bank that had no government oversight, and that they were not going to be able to get it back. That's what they determined. And then from that, they started figuring out in every state in the United States that this is happening in all 50 states. Okay. And then people started suing because their child's genetic material was being sold in gigantic lots from the legal, chain of custody from the hospital to private DNA banks for further testing way outside the bounds of PKU. So what they're doing, if I'm not explaining this correctly, what's happening is that what is happening in actuality is that a bunch of people wanted your baby's blood samples in mass for everyone that has birth in a hospital. They wanted to do that. It's kind of weird to ask to get that. And so what they did was they developed the PKU test. Well, they didn't develop it. What they did was they waited around for something that could affect what they wanted and seize what they wanted, which was everybody's blood. And what happened was that a guy named Guthrie invented the PKU test in the 1960s. Okay. And the reason that Guthrie invented it is because he knew somebody that had a child with PKU, and then he was a geneticist type guy. That was like his interest. And so because he felt so bad about the PKU situation, he wanted to develop a test. So he developed a test, and then he got it manufactured because he wanted to spread it as widely as possible. He got it manufactured by Miles Laboratory. Miles Laboratory is bought up by Bayer AG. So if you don't know who Bayer is IG Farben. IG Farben is the German eugenics company. That would be the maker of Zyklon B and things like that, among other things, including sarin gas and things like that. So Bayer buys Miles Laboratory, and the Bayer cashes out on these tests, and then lobbies with their private cohorts to get it standardized into hospitals so that it goes everywhere, right? And that is why you have a heel prick across the United States. And the reason that they now claim they've opened the blood samples up to numerous tests of things that you're in statistical likelihood not going to have, but that you're scared of when you're a parent, they're standing there and telling you, you need to get this test because XYZ, your baby could have that. The reason that they're doing that is because they got caught selling your fucking genetic material over the last few decades. And there have been large statewide lawsuits that have netted like millions of dollars in payouts for people that are upset about their child's genetic information being sold on the open market. And so because of that, that's why they changed it to a wide range of tests that they now test for, because they realize that PKU is so specific and so statistically unlikely that anybody that's not fucking retarded would ask questions, because it's a prevalence of 1 in 25,000, and you're a fucking idiot. And so that's why they changed that. So now they have like 50 reasons instead of one to take the blood screening sample. But the original reason that they did that is because they need a giant sample and collection of your DNA material. This is the same reason that in the past decade, there have been like unmarked vans with private companies going around all throughout the United States buying genetic samples, blood samples for genetic research in like public parks and areas that are low income where people don't use the hospital, because they want a broader map datum of DNA. This is the same reason that Russia in the past decade put out a law that bans any foreign NGO from coming into Russia and like taking blood samples. Particularly in the satellite nations on the border of Russia. This is all a part of the same thing. The reason why this is the reason why Senator Cohen in the 1980s warned in the Senate that Israel was trying to develop ethnic bioweapons that were DNA specific, and they had a program to do that. And he tried to warn everybody in the United States, and they didn't fucking listen. Nobody listened. Nobody took it seriously. Just like they don't take anything that I say seriously now. Everybody's going to pay the price. We're all going to pay the price together. And this whole COVID-19 thing, when you're doing seroprevalence, serology surveillance through the CDC's recommended program, which everybody does because apparently nobody in the United States has any balls anymore. No city says, fuck off, we're a city. They just go, we do what we're told because we are, in servitude. We're just a bunch of slaves with no brains. So we just do whatever the fuck any happy master tells us to do because we want money. And they just go along with it, and it doesn't matter what it is. Well, nobody's paying any attention to what is happening to your fluid samples after they get tested for COVID-19. Haven't been the whole time. I tried to warn people about it. Nobody gives a fuck. You wanna know why? You know why they don't give a fuck? They don't give a fuck because it sounds crazy, number one. And number two, because everybody that's involved with this is Jewish. And so they're not allowed to ask any questions about it, because if they go and ask questions about it, then they're going to be an anti-Semite. Well, I'm glad that you're so concerned about being called an anti-Semite, because as a result of that, you're going to fucking wipe out the rest of your generations, and you're not going to get them back. A lot of people are going to get wiped out. That's what's coming. You're going to go bye-bye. No more. No more. Sorry, it's rough. I know it's cold. It's pretty tough. That's what happens when you behave like a piece of Angus beef. Tyson chicken. You're a Tyson chicken walking around. You don't own yourself, and you're not accountable, and the government isn't accountable, and nobody gives a fuck. And that may make you upset. You might be mad. You might not like what I have to say, but that's just what you have to hear because it's the truth. Now, the second point that you'll go to is that somebody will get mad by what I'm saying. They'll say, well, if they accept what I'm saying, if they think there's any kind of rationality to that, and if it ends up manifesting, because they're probably not going to check it out themselves, but if it ends up manifesting before their eyes and they start seeing people get wiped out, and then they remember that crazy fucker on YouTube that said this? Fuck, this is what's happening. Then they're going to go, okay, we got to go kill a bunch of people. You see what I'm saying? What happened to the in between? Like, where's the in between like we're gonna go murder a bunch of people to take them out because they were fucking with us? What happened in between that and like, step one, which is like I just do whatever I'm told and I just fucking open my mouth and take whatever they shove in it, and I close my mouth when they tell me to close my mouth. What happened between that and like now I'm gonna go fucking face shoot everybody? Where was the in between? There's nowhere. There was no in between. And that's how you get played. This is all a game. Don't you understand that? And you're not going to be on top unless you realize this. Unless you realize that you have to do shit yourself. And right now we're fucked because we're pretty much in a web of shit where we're all fucking each other because we're putting up with a system and it's enslaving everybody. Just like I can't fucking get done anything that I want to get done because I just have to constantly play catch up to exist here on Earth and work for other people doing dumb shit that is essentially fraud, waste, and abuse to pay other people that aren't working. And all that anyone is concerned about is just keeping the train going, keeping the wheels greased. Don't rock the boat. That's all anybody's concerned about. You guys should be burning this fucking boat down. You know? I'm assuming that you should be burning the boat down based off of what I can compute is your interest. You know, I could be wrong. You know, it's not my interest. I don't really care. Personally, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't really care. I've already said I accept that I'm probably gonna die. So I'm okay with, like however bad this gets, it doesn't matter to me. No, I know you guys listen. I mean, for anybody that's watching this, I know you guys listen. People are commenting like, "Dog, I was listening." I know you guys are listening. I just mean, there's the people that are watching this all the time. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's great that you're listening. It'd be nice if some senator with his hand on the nuke switch could like watch this video and then it would click, right? That's kind of who I'm telling it for. Somebody that's just come in here. I want to shock and awe the sheep that would randomly stumble on this video, right? Like that's kind of what I'm going after. Is it a pipe dream? Probably. Not that I don't enjoy your company, right? It's not that I don't like you guys coming here. Of course I'm happy. I'm happy that I can say anything at all that would help somebody. Hopefully I'm helping. I kind of just make. I have to go by the seat of my pants, right? So it's like I hope that I'm not like. Oh fuck! JP says that he got a letter from the VA asking for vets to volunteer for the vaccine. I gotta charge this phone. Hopefully this doesn't die. I mean, yeah, I mean, you can understand. So we take the situation of the vaccine, like right now they are talking about bribing people, right? But that's because, that they can do that right now because it's not time to crash the dollar. Eventually they're going to have like economic, like, so let me kind of explain this in a broad, approximate procedural order. So these like all this stuff happens at the same time, right? The external tension and threats between foreign nations and nations that have populations that are resistive, right? Internal conflict between elements within a state structure that are bribed, like socialist, to combat other people, most of which are of the conservative persuasion. All of the conservative persuasion is the area of the corral pen that has, like, a leg sticking out. So it's like people can go into that corral pen that's painted red on the bars and be like, yeah, we're not in the cattle farm, we're over here. No, like, you're in there. They just wanted to paint some bars red so you think that you're not, so then you stop trying to escape, so then they can get you later. And then they're taking the socialists, which are the rest of the cattle, and they're working you guys against each other until they can get some of you cattle to be like, look, I'm the leader, I'm the cattle leader of the red fence cattle, and I say, by golly, I love America. We need to march right through that stun box for liberty. That's what they want to do. You see what I'm saying? Because that's a lot more effective if you have cattle going buck wild than, like, trying to push them too fast and they start jumping fences and fucking trying to gore the farmhands and shit. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's the entire, that is what conservatism is. Like, you want to know what conservatism is? That's what it is. It is control. That is what it is. They're saying, we can't fit you into the tight fucking box that we fit around these socialist heads. So we gave you a bigger box so that you stay here. And hopefully you don't leave, because we want all you motherfuckers in the stun box. So don't leave. We're going to give you a little bit of a bigger box, give you some more breathing room here. That's what conservatism is. It's invented by a Jew named Frank Mayer. He calls it fusionism, is what he originally termed it. Frank Mayer, by the way, is considered a very intelligent person for coming up with that strategy, if you didn't know that. Meyer. So once they get the vaccines going and people start freaking out, and depending on the order of how this stuff advances with foreign conflict and internal conflict, in order to bend and shape the world in the direction that they want it to go, eventually people are going to figure out. So even though right now the conservatives and the liberals don't want to accept what's going on, eventually, I mean, other than like core people that are really close to the feeding trough that cannot disassociate from it, other than that, the people on the peripherals, once things go really, really bad, people are going to find themselves waking up someday, after enough days of this go by and things progress. They're going to wake up someday and they're going to inventory their life, and they're going to go, I have no kids, I have no property, I have no future or hope, I can't fucking own anything practically. They're fucking putting vaccines down my throat. I have to fucking fill out a permission slip to put my dollars in a bank. Like, all of this shit is going to come to a head at some point. It's going to be stubborn as fuck to get there, and people are going to wake up way, 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 way later than they should have, but eventually they will. And that is when the entire world will go from just put it in my mouth, in my motherfucking mouth. When the entire world goes from that to now we're fucking executing Jews and shooting people in the head. We're shooting everybody in the head and burning everything. That's when they do that switch, okay? And all of your little gay political parties and like all the things that you thought were real are going to fucking go away. And you'll have what's going to be incredible about it is that they're not going to be able to see the creator at all. So they're going to see whatever their personal, no matter what their flavor of ice cream is, whether or not they're a fucking fire-breathing socialist or the most fucking stick-up-the-ass conservative, whatever they are, they're going to have their own idea of what the world is and why things are done the way they are, and like, you know, what moves people. They're all going to have their own perspectives and their own experiences and grief and losses and pain and suffering and you know, bliss, all their own experiences and sights, and somehow those are all going to coalesce in time in a vortex, and they're going to flip for lots of different reasons. There are reasons they won't even identify. They probably won't even identify that they're doing the same thing. Like they'll probably see like socialists are socialists. I'm not a socialist, and we just happen to be doing the same thing. They're not going to identify that. They're going to identify that they're just serving their own interests, right? It's because not only was the day made for them, but their sight was made for them. And they're making their choices. That's why. They're not going to see the creator in it. They're not going to understand what's going on. Just like they don't understand what's going on now. It's just the way that it is. I mean, nobody's going to see it. Nobody's going to see it. I'm not going to see it. I'm going to be confused or dead. I'm going to be just as confused as everybody else. In awe, in absolute awe. Begging for clarity. Begging for help. Anyways, I get kind of in a tangent there, going down the dark hole. We don't need to go down a dark hole. I think what we should talk about is the future here, right? Like we should talk about, because I'm explaining shit. I'm probably, if you're not disgusted by what I'm saying, if you're not watching this, you're just like, I just cannot believe this. This is just stomach churning. This man is sick. If that's not you and you're still along for the ride here, then that means that like you're listening to what I'm saying, and you're not sure if like you're like, it could be or could be. I guess we'll just see, right? But you probably like, you know, I basically described the mechanics of how things are going to flip and perspectives are going to flip and change, right? Like a wave, and you've got an idea of like how bad that could be, right? Like the potential of threat, right? But we haven't talked about, you know, like what to do, right? Well, it's so the way that society has been built since the utilization of oil, of fuel for power, in the Industrial Revolution. I mean, before that, but the velocity increased in the Industrial Revolution of advancement to propel this beast. So the future of a humanity that is possible is that's outside of tyranny. If we accept that money is the control mechanism and surveillance mechanism of maintaining tyranny of societies. If we can accept that, then we can proceed forward. If you can't accept that, like if your notion is like, I fucking love brand new shiny F-150s that never get scratched, and I love trading them out, and I refuse, I don't care what has to happen, I will continue to rotate these bitches out for fresh wheels. If that's you, then we're not going to be able to get to the next place. But well, you have to, if we accept that as a logic base, that money as a technology, not just the dollar, not just like the paper dollar or like the silver coin or the gold coin, but the use and exchange of an intermediary abstraction to replace physical value. You know what I just described right there as like trying to come up with an on-the-spot definition? You know what else fits that definition? A shell game. So when you go to New York City and there's some soul brother with like a fancy watch on, taking you for a ride with the shell game, taking some cards or some cups and switching them around, right? Like, you're looking for the shell, you're looking for the object, the marble, the shell, whatever it is, right? But then you pick a cup with nothing in there. And the cups are a great example because they're intermediary abstractions that might contain what it is that you're looking for. There's no difference at all. Iota, not one iota, not any difference at all between the cup game and using money as a technology. Why? Because your dollars, whether they're called dollars or they're called, fucking right spinning, or whether they're called pound sterling, or it's called a gold coin, or a silver dollar, a silver liberty, whatever. Those are cups. What is the marble? What is the marble inside? What is the shell? What is the fucking rock, or the whatever it is that's supposed to be in the cup? What is that? What it really is you when you go to work. When you agree to go to work and you're like, I'm gonna show up at fucking 8 o'clock and get off at 5, and that whole time I'm gonna take all the food that I ate that's in my fridge that I went and bought with this money they gave me. I'm gonna take all that food, I'm gonna eat it and make calories so I can move my fucking hands up and down and move my feet back and forth, and I'm gonna briskly walk around, like going from hitherto, pulling all these levers, whatever it is that you're doing, swinging a hammer, fucking stitching, fucking whatever, pumping gas, whatever it is that you're doing. In my case, it's probably like swimming in shit, because I'm doing a lot of sewer work, although it's been a lot better lately. I don't have any wood to knock on. I don't even believe that anyway. Anyways, whatever it is that you do, that is what is actually underneath the cup. That's what's real, right? Like, what's real is that you really do show up to work, and you really do leave your family, and your child sits at home. Probably in the modern society, they've somehow tricked us dumbasses into sending our women out to work too. So our pay dropped by half because we're competed against by our own women. So the women aren't at home, so that your kids get sent to be socialized and brainwashing. And your child has to grow up around strangers and doesn't get to spend any time with the family, right? So that's what you got. Congratulations. You got space rockets or whatever, and fucking Bud Light, and your fancy flared out F-150s that are basically made out of fucking plastic, and that are made overseas and not even made in the United States. And you don't have any production capacity in the United States because you're getting ready to fuck you in the ass and you don't even know it. They've just set you up, pulling out all your industry out of the United States so that you can't fight a war. But you didn't know that. You just thought you were getting F-150s. So anyway, while it's happening, your kid is at home. They're not spending time with the family. They're probably in a daycare, and it sucks because it's like you don't have any choice, right? Like, what choice is there? You don't have any choice. You're fucking enslaved. You don't have to. There's no better choice, right? If you're in that situation, it's because you feel like there's no better choice. That is because all of society has fucked you. That's because we have all tried to grease the wheels and keep this train going as long as possible. Nobody wants to rock the boat. Nobody wants to stop and say something's wrong here. Nobody wants to take anything into account. They want to say we don't like Antifa, we don't like socialists. Well, the fucking Republicans are where the socialists were in the fucking 60s. There's no difference. It's all fucking socialist. And the only thing that you have to prove that is to look at American families. It's not just America, it's all over the world. Look at the way that the technological advancement has changed society and how it's torn families apart. It's made people not want to have kids. It's made people less connected to their family, less connected to their children. This is the effect of all this. This is evil. This is wrong. This is not what we're supposed to be doing here. All right? It's easy to see. It's plain to see. It is wrong. It is wrong when you have to look at something that you don't want to do and do it anyway because you have to have a paycheck, because that's like how you're going to exist in the society, and so you have to do it anyway. If that's the scenario, that means that it's wrong. But where we are as a society is that you may not have a choice but to do that unless you want to go live in a tent with no family. Because good luck finding a family that's going to want to come with you to be made in the first place, you know? Because they're all going to be inundated too. They're going to have the same shit that's pumped into your head, pumped into their brains. It's poison. So anyway, out of this entire process, if we accept that the way that it's possible to get people to do things that they don't want to do, and the way that it's possible to transition a society in, I don't know, 70 years from being like kill all communists to being like well, maybe there's a communism that's a little less bad that we could do, you know? Or maybe we could have communism but just not call it communism. We'll just call it liberty. We won't call it communism, and then that'll be okay. How do we get from kill all communists to you know, let's have fucking commie souffle? However we got there, if it's done by money, if money was the mechanism, the drive that did that, if we can accept that, then once we establish that, then we can accept that any future that is free has to not have that influence. In order to escape, you have to pry away society from the mechanism of the technology of money, because money is the entire vehicle that caused all of the change that has taken place. And because society has assumed that money is impartial, because they've assumed that the almighty dollar is this free, unbiased purchasing power, and they don't understand that it's actually just a weapon that got introduced to steal everything from you, and they just give you a little bit back in exchange. And that's all that it is. Because people fail to recognize this, that's how they got taken for a ride. But that, my friend, is why, if you've ever heard the saying, buy the ticket, take the ride. That is what they're talking about. The United States has bought the ticket, and we are going to take the ride. Now, a future where people are free involves the decoupling of humanity from the entire centralization of things that they depend on. What does that mean? The first thing that means is that all the shit that people use and think that they need, they probably don't need, because they didn't have it before and they still lived. So they probably don't need it all. There are some things that they're going to, like electricity, right? Electricity is going to be around. You're not going to, no matter what, electricity is going to be around. Electricity can be produced very simply. It's just that because everything is driven energetically by money, it contorts the access to electricity. I don't mean like I don't mean like setting up a communist centralized source. What I mean is that every house is a power plant. I mean, every house is. Now, if you live in a shoebox in New York City, you can't do that, right? I mean, you can to an extent, but you're just not going to be able to like run massive amounts of power if you live in a fucking 10 by 10 studio apartment atop 1,000 others. You're just not going to be able to do it. But you can still produce some power. That means that the fuel that you use for vehicles, for engines, like the technology of engines isn't going to go away. You're going to have engines, right? You're going to have that. You're going to have fuel, right? But where do you get your fuel? Well, fuel, if you hadn't noticed, is entirely centralized globally. It's entirely game kept and centralized. The trick of it is that you can use all of the wartime discovery of fuel processing. All of that can be brought down to the individual household level. Now, you're not going to be able to do that if you're like the guy that's like, I just buy everything, I don't think about anything, I'm not willing to use my brain, yada yada. You're just going to work for world government if that's you. If you're somebody that's like, I refuse to, I'm going to do whatever I can to be independent, then you're going to be motivated enough, because you want to be free. You're going to be motivated enough to learn about things that you didn't already know. And once you learn them, you're going to understand how simple it is. Now, fuel can be produced entirely, whether it's a benzene derivative, all of your basic hydrocarbons, everything from like benzene, propane, fucking gasoline, diesel, kerosene, you name it, all of it, it can easily be produced from trees and brush and yard clippings and fucking leaves, all of it. It can be produced from that. Do you want to know how you do it? You put it in a big metal fucking pipe that is airtight with a fucking outlet pipe that then goes into a container. That container is metal because it's gonna get hot as fuck. Then an outlet pipe, so you have a pipe going into that second container. Out of that second container, there's another pipe going into another container, just like the first one. Out of the second container, there's another pipe coming out. It's going into the third container. And then what you're going to do is you have to figure out a way to control the temperatures of each one of those. And then what you're going to do is you're going to heat the first big ass pipe, and then you're gonna pull off different fractions of fuel from the biomass, and then you're gonna like, depending on what you want, you use catalysts, just like what's in your muffler. When you pass something through your muffler, it's very similar to that. You do a catalyst, like a metal catalyst or chemical catalyst, that is oftentimes reusable or degrades very slowly. And then you can produce everything that you ever want. You're gonna be able to produce toluene, you're gonna be able to produce gasoline, fucking everything. If you wanted to skip that, you could go straight into plastic pyrolysis. The way that plastics get made is they take oil stock, like all the trash plastic, when you're driving down the street and there's fucking trash everywhere, all that plastic gets made from oil stock. So what they're doing is you're taking a heavy hydrocarbon that is a plastic that's further down the stream from where they pulled out gas and stuff when they originally burned the oil. The plastic is a long chain hydrocarbon, and what you're doing when you're grabbing all that plastic and cooking it in an oxygen-free vessel, you are then cracking it, and depending on the temperature that you heat it to, you will need, obviously you need like a thermocouple so you can see the temperature. Depending on the temperature that you heat it to, you can just render absolutely pure fuel. You break down the hydrocarbon into smaller chains, and now you have fuel. And the temperature that you do it at dictates what kind of fuel you have. So there's no reason, even if you don't, in the transition that's coming up, even if you don't have room for trees, you can clean up all the trash and plastic to make fuel. You can make fuel. You can make toluene and xylene and whatever you want. You can make toluene and you can make trinitrotoluene, that's TNT. You can make TNT, and then you can put it in bleach and you can make hexanitrostilbene. And then you could have yourself a 7,000 meter per second insensitive explosive just off of trash. I'm just saying, like, the possibilities are endless, right? But because this stuff is because society is so inundated with shit that doesn't matter, and they're getting their fucking pants stolen off of them, they're not aware of any of this stuff. It's all developed. It's been all of that understanding and record of like how to crack biomaterial and plastic has been developed in the past 70 years. All of it. Yeah, we're gonna do so I've got a ton of books. And I'm trying to put together a module here. I think the most important thing is demo. So I think we should do demo first, because when things go bad, regardless of what it is, right? Like if you're a brainwashed idiot and you think that the end all be all is the threat from China and that China might be here, okay, great. You could use some demo, right? Like I know the United States government is going to take care of you all the time and everything, and like you're not going to have any problem with like uncontrolled fucking socialist riots all over the United States. That's never going to happen. But and that the United States government is always going to take care of you. But if they didn't, we are a free society on paper here, and you might want to know some fucking demo, since all that shit is like pretty much hidden from you, because apparently there's some kind of like special class of people that can do demo and you can't, even though you motherfuckers are the ones that made the fucking demo in the first place. So I think we should do demo. So we're gonna do demo. We're gonna do a demo module. I have to prepare everything and decide like what to show, because I don't want to show you a bunch of shit that's gonna fucking get you killed. Because there's some very sensitive demo and we don't want to do any of that. We want to do like shit that is robust and safe and can be understood, because a lot of demo that's out there is experimental to the extent that like they don't even understand what's going on with it. Now some of the experimental stuff, like some of the stuff like nitromethane explosive is very cool, because as an example, they don't understand nitromethane. So nitromethane is a very unique explosive in its mechanisms and its properties that isn't even understood. I mean, they understand that it explodes and things like that, but they didn't even know that nitromethane exploded until like the 60s. Like they had to reclassify like its transport safety procedures by the government, because they didn't accept that it was like, they were like, this fucking is an explosive. And they had a bunch of fucking like trucks blow up in accidents and stuff, kill a bunch of people. And then they had to like reclass it as an explosive. But they don't understand. They still don't understand it. Like they don't understand. They try to study its detonation properties. It's like magic sauce. Now nitromethane isn't. I think what we should start as like a base is probably TNT. So TNT is a very basic explosive. Its relative explosive factor is 1. A relative explosive factor is a ratio number that is it encompasses the explosive force of explosives for comparisons, so that you can get an idea of like it incorporates both detonation velocity and brisance, and it incorporates everything into one relative factor. TNT is 1. The reason that TNT is 1 is because it was the most commonly mass-produced explosive. Why? Because it's safe. Because you can burn it and it won't explode. That's why TNT is. It's not an incredible performer. It's just easy to make and safe. And the way that they do it, they call it trinitrotoluene, because it goes through a process of a series of 3 nitrations. What they do traditionally is they literally nitrate it 3 times, typically with processing in between to prepare it for the next nitration. Now that's kind of slow, and there are people that do batches where they try to do it in a single batch, and it ends up being really crude, and it gets oxidization products that are undesirable, that like it can be done, but you're making TNT and a bunch of other stuff. And so you don't want to do that. But what you can do that a lot of people don't know about is that you can actually, and it's really cool because, but I've never done it. I've only read about it. So I need to set up some runs for it to build up a process and record it and everything. Because essentially what I would like to do is a module where we take trees and we process them into toluene, and then we take toluene and then we do a triple nitration, but it's in a single process. Instead of doing series nitration, we do single nitration. But what we do is we take a diluent of product, like post-reaction product, and we put that with the amount of water that is calculated to be driven off of the TNT nitration process. And then what happens is by the end of the reaction, you have a calculation on water, and then you run the reaction so that, and TNT is really cool because you don't even have to do a vacuum to do this. Some of them you have to do a vacuum to bring down boiling point. For TNT, you don't even have to do that. So you could literally have like a vat and like cook the stuff. And then what's going to happen is you're going to drive off all of the water. And by the time that you trap the water in a water trap, you don't let it go into the air. The reason that you do that is because you do a volume measurement in your water trap. And when it increases to a certain point, you know that you've had complete nitration. So the advantage of that is that you don't have to have all of the thermometers and shit like that. All you have to have is a volumetric checkpoint. And then when you get done, because you're using diluent from the product in the initial reaction that's already quantified to be like size and ratio to what you're trying to react, what happens is you just end up with pure trinitrotoluene at the end in one batch. It's a very cool technique. It's not really done these days. It's actually very old. It's like an old nitration technique that kind of went away. But it's very, and your product is really pure. But anyway, then you can take, so what you can do then is you can take your TNT. Then what you can do is you can take TNT and then you can actually do a very simple reaction with bleach, and you come up with hexanitrostilbene, which is a it's obviously derived from TNT. You're just taking TNT and you're treating it in a certain way with bleach, and then you're gonna boost your detonation velocity up to, it's somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 meters per second. So out of one explosive, you can have a lower velocity RE1 explosive from oil products that you can make yourself, that can't be taken away. They can't take it away. It's not going to go away. We can also do a nitric acid and sulfuric acid electrolysis, where you take car batteries and you're going to make fucking, out of basic shit, you make nitric and sulfuric acid. We'll use membranes, Teflon membrane, so we drive off water to make it like high concentration and shit. The really cool thing about the TNT process, you don't have to use concentrated nitric acid. You can use totally shitty nitric acid. All you have to do is calculate what the concentration is, and then you have to multiply so that your concentration is equivalent to concentrated nitric acid, so that by the end, when your water comes off, what you're left with is a completely trinitrated product in one batch. Anyway, this is all an example of shit that every American should know. At least like free Americans, you know? Furthermore, what we're gonna do is I'm working on a detonator that is a novel detonator. It's from a patent from, it's actually from Orbital ATK patent. And it's what they use. They use it for, they use it mostly for like small tests of detonations and ignitions of rockets. And it's really interesting because it's non-explosive. So it's not explosive, and then you're going to use it uses dielectric breakdown to amplify amps, so that you can use a like a 500 volt power source, which could be like a piezoelectric crystal, like a cigarette lighter, basically. I mean, you wouldn't want to use a cigarette lighter. You're going to want something a little bit more robust than that. But you use a piezo crystal or ceramic. That's going to get you over, it's going to be high voltage but low amperage. And then what you're going to do is you design something that takes advantage of dielectric breakdown current. And what happens is you get a reciprocal increase of current for heat instantaneously in like nanoseconds when the dielectric material breaks down, and you're gonna flip your current way fucking high. It's not like an EFI or like a slapper detonator. It's nothing like that. You're gonna take what is normally considered non-combustible material. You're going to combust it, taking advantage of physics with DBI, using plain electric sources such as like you can use ignition coils from cars, you can use grill igniters, things like that. And then it's so good, it's so effective that you can detonate shit like hexanitrostilbene, which normally needs a booster. Like, if you know that, the HNS is so insensitive, It's what they use like when they do cratering on space missions and shit for like moon rock and shit. They're detonating. They're using HNS as the explosive because it's so heat resistant and insensitive to shock and stuff like that that it's considered safe to send out into space for space launch. We will not be making EFPs or shape charges. What we will be doing is doing physical studies on projectile motion, on object motion, hypervelocity object motion, but nothing, no EFPs. No EFPs and no anything else that the ATF would like to take notes on. We are simply trying to move a body very quickly. Very fucking quickly. So anyway, I think that this is a good direction for people to go in. It's you know, you would have to think. So if you're like watching this and you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? Well, I guess it's not going to make very much sense unless you accept that things are fucked and that people might need us. If you accept that, if you don't accept that, if you don't accept that, then you should understand that if you're wrong, in the case that you're wrong, I mean, I know that like the news isn't telling you that things are fucked or anything like that. I mean, they're kind of telling it to you, but they're not telling it to you like it is. If they're wrong, and if you're wrong, and if people do need this stuff, if they will need it, they're going to have a hard time figuring out on the spot when they really need it. You know what I mean? It's something that takes a little bit of time. This is why it's important. There should be no problem at all with Americans having knowledge of anything. Yeah. So let's get back on the broad, because that was just specific, right? Like, so I was trying to get you excited about the possibilities, right? What society will have to be you're not going to be able to help your situation in the present quickly, right? Like if you live in an apartment or something like that, there's nothing that you're going to be able to do about it overnight. But that doesn't mean that you can't learn about stuff. And so what we can do is we can start, because a lot of this stuff is like I'm going through these paces too, in terms of changing my life all the time to try to actualize liberty in the ways that I can, you know? And so everything that we use in terms of that, we have to have money to use, right? Like you have to have a car so you can go to work. You have to have the driver's license to be on the road, you know, to be legal. You have to put fuel in the car. You got to have money for the fuel. You got to have money to buy the license. You got to have money for the inspection, like all these things that you need money for. You got to have money for water so you get your water. You got to have money for food so you can get your food. All these things that you need money for, that necessitate money, it ends up being blinding to the reality that like you already had access to all this stuff without the use of money, and then they just got taken away. And so the way to work backwards from there is to start freeing up the things that are used without the use of money. And the only way that you're going to do that is to do it yourself, because nobody's going to come work for you and like produce fuel for you. You're going to have to do it yourself. Now, before things go bad, it might not make sense for you to make fuel, right? Like if you're like living in a suburb and you're like, I don't know if I can do hydrocracking in my driveway in a suburb, you probably can. You can probably make a small setup. But if you didn't want to do that or whatever, that's now. Maybe in the future you'll want to do it and you'll want the information on it, so you can make fuel. They're talking about right now they want to make it so that employers that are dependent on the federal government, they want to make it vaccine compliant through that. So like if your business is compliant with federal regulation, they want to make it so that you have to get a vaccine or you're going to get fired. You lose your job. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not going to make any assumption for anybody else or speak for anybody else. I am happy to go to jail for not refusing to get a vaccine. I'm happy to go all the way for no vaccine. No vaccine is coming this way, no matter what. So, if that's the future, some people are going to have some issues. So it's probably good to start looking ahead and planning ahead in kind of an extreme way of self-sufficiency and being able to provide stuff for you in a real way. All the things that you use can be provided. Other than what can't be helped, what cannot be helped is the regulatory control, because that's an abstraction out of thin air. Like the law is an abstraction. The reason that you can't go driving around for a year without getting pulled over, somebody checking your driver's license, some weird situation like, oh, you're not current on your driver's license, your plates are expired, whatever. I can't help that, right? That's your law and your society and your people that decided that was a good idea for some fucking reason. I can't help you with that, but what I can do is help you put fuel in your vehicle so you don't have to buy gas. Could you imagine if you didn't have to buy any gas? Like how much money you would save? A penny saved is a penny that you didn't fucking need in the first place because it's useless. I'm just saying. I'm just saying there's some things like fuel seems like a good example. The water seems like a good example. I need to do water. We'll probably try to do it as a water module. And it's all dependent on I'm barely hanging on here. So I barely have my shit together as it is. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do all this stuff. I am getting this stuff together right now. I'm practicing. I'm building detonators, non-explosive detonators to find the cheapest, most common way to do this that everybody's going to be able to access and be able to do. I'll tell you what it is so far. So far, this is what I've got. So far, what I'm experimenting with. So I'm doing some tests between various reactive materials. The reactive material number one is obviously going to be Teflon aluminum. But I'm going to try some other thing. I'm going to try Teflon silicon too. It's probably going to be more Teflon aluminum it looks like, but I need to do more tests. And the other one that's going to be really important is going to be boron potassium nitrate. And then the detonators themselves are pretty much like the only rare part of it. Depending on, I've got to do some work with some insulators, with some dielectric material to find the perfect DBI breakdown material that's going to be common. I'm thinking I've got some 1 millimeter shrink tube, And I'm thinking that's going to work. I need to validate that. If it doesn't work, ceramics will work. Ceramic tubes will work. But the body itself is going to be, it's a fucking cable junction. It's a fucking, you take a radio antenna junction. So you basically take connectors from SMA junctions, and the dimensions on them for 500 volt dBi breakdown is appropriate for detonation. Well, stuff using airbags is like, that's like fucking like, stiffenates and stuff like that. You don't want to, that stuff's a high explosive. A primary high explosive. You probably don't want to mess with it. You can mess with that. I'm not going to mess with that. I'm not going to do stuff that's going to like blow people up. Because it's already hazardous enough working. Like if I make a video module, if enough people saw it, I guarantee that somebody's going to be like fucking splashing nitric acid on their face and shit. I have no idea how dangerous it is. There's nothing I can do about that. All I can do is just try to foresee the issues of like, explosives and try to explain it in a way that is understandable, and then, use common materials in a way that is safe and accessible for people. Nothing wrong with it at all. No difference between that and having cannons at Lexington and Concord. No difference whatsoever. You're basically caught with your fucking pants down if you have any armor roll on you, regardless of who it is. It doesn't matter who it is. If somebody's illegally doing something that is depriving you of your life and liberty, you really don't have fuck all much you can do about it. Go through Amazon if you want. They're part of the problem, but you might as well milk it while you can, I guess. I don't order from Amazon. It's getting harder and harder. I try to go through eBay because there's private sellers. Half the fucking time when I order on eBay, it's the seller. They're just selling on Amazon anyway. So you get an Amazon package redirected from eBay. It is maddening. Yeah, you do got to get it somewhere. That's true. It's true. So true. I hate them all. Somebody said that I want to use eBay. Never have gotten an Amazon package. I hate them all. I don't like it. It's communism. It's market and price control through mass consolidation of platform. And fucking sending all your shit to China. It all plays hand in hand. It's all part of the same thing. The bottom line is the bottom line of what is going on. I'm sure that you were watching the news like over the last 2 decades about how all the little local news about this shopping mall is closing down. These stores are closing down. Blah blah blah. They're getting outcompeted by Amazon. So what happened? They sent all of your manufacturing industry out of the United States by bribery. So they sent it out by bribery. And they built China exactly the same way that they built the USSR. Then what they did, the USSR was built to be a military competitor. China was built to be an industry competitor globally. And so after they sent all of your shit out of the United States and then actually built them, then they're able to undercut any competition that could arise here. And the purpose of that is to keep you under the red, so that you're not starting a business and starting anything back up, to keep you suppressed. Why? Because then everything gets consolidated under Amazon and eBay and shit like that. You see the game? This is the entire game. So then every seller is going through them using PayPal, using PayPal's policy, eBay's policy, Amazon's policy, and then what it ends up doing is affecting and shaping society without law. It's above the law. It's commerce, right? The almighty dollar. And so you're artificially suppressed because your pussy U.S. government agreed to take bribes to send out your industry, because in the first place, people essentially nationalized their industry through finance. They nationalized industry, which then made it only make sense to send it overseas because of the fuck games they're playing. Then they send everything out. Then they fucking make cheap markets to underbid you so that you don't build up anything, so that you're continually suppressed. Then they fucking make all the sales portals and control them. So everything goes through a controlled pipeline, and then now all of the industry has been taken out from under you. So anything, if you wanted to make the fucking little housing or whatever, you can't make it enough to produce to send to the entire United States. You can only make whatever you can make. You'd have to rebuild and like retool everything and start it all back up. You see what I'm saying? It's not even Asian slave labor. They're shipping the shit. I mean, fucking China is like fucking, I don't know what it is, like 6,000 miles or something like that to China, depending on which way you go. They are hemorrhaging money into keeping it going, so that they can suppress everything and buy everything up. So what is going on? I guess this should be what we end on. We'll end on this. So what is going on in the United States? It's not your fault that you don't know. If you don't know, don't feel bad. What is going on is that you have had a transfer of wealth in the United States. And it has been a very long process. It's been very subtle and slow, because the United States is deemed to be extremely dangerous because of the people here. So they've done it as slow as possible and as placating as possible to try to keep the violence down, like the possibility of like violence and resistance down, because they're putting they're putting all the fucking horses in on this. This is it. And so what has actually happened is that you have had a power transfer take place in the United States, and all of the wealth of the United States has shifted and transferred. And people have been fine to do it because they're too dumb to understand what's going on. If you didn't know that. And so while you're focused on like China, like, you know, I was having a conversation with a guy in his 50s the other day about like, you know, what is going on. It gets pretty irritating trying to argue with people. It's like I'm not even trying to argue. This isn't like an ideal or something. It's not like I like this, or that I think that it's cool or something, or like you should think this because that would be cool because then you're on my team. We're not on the same fucking team. I don't have a team. You're not my family. Fuck off. I'm telling you exactly what is happening, and that's it. And it's not ideal. I don't like the situation. This is just what's happening. When I'm arguing with some guy that's in his 50s about China and like, you know, how the Jews run China, and he can't get over the fact that like the Chinese are the enemy. They're like the worst. The Chinese are the worst. They're the problem with all. You know, it's the Chinese. You know, it might have something to do with Fox News and CNN that is informing your judgment of the situation. It might be that. It might be that. It might be that you're unaware that Fox News and CNN are entirely staffed by Jews, to the point now where even their anchors are primarily Jews. Certainly their administrative staff is Jews on both of those channels. Certainly their chain of funding from the banks in investment and through their history is Jew. Certainly the foreigners, the most prevalent foreigner by far, like to the degree of 90% in the Chinese Communist Revolution when they transitioned to communism and became the state that they are now through Mao, 90% were Jews from other countries. The establishment of communism in Soviet Russia, when they transitioned from Tsarism to Bolshevikism, was primarily Jews. And eBay and Amazon and PayPal are all Jews. So what you have in the United States is a transition of wealth from the people to Jews. And now it's already been done for a long time. So now everyone in your politics are Jews. Everyone in your media is getting changed out to Jews. Do you see how this works? And then when they argue, it's the Chinese and the products and they're moving they took our jobs. Why are the products, why the fuck in the first place is anything made in China? How did that happen? China is on the other side of the planet. Do you know how far the goods have to go to get here? You know how many fucking things have to be moved into place to get the little trinket that you order from China to fucking get here? It's got a lower probability of success than anywhere that's closer. Any nation that's closer. It's on the other side of the world. I know that everything is made in China. But, 50-year-old guy, why is it that anything is made in China in the first place? Why do you have no industry here and it's all been moved over to China? Did you want that to happen? Well, no, I didn't want that to happen. Okay, who the fuck wanted it to happen? I don't know. The Chinese. Yeah, okay. Like there's a fucking disconnect there that you're missing. For fuck's sake. Do you have any brain cells in there? Fucking wake them up. So what has happened in the United States is that you have had a transition of wealth and power, okay? And the measure of whether or not that is successful is if there is a civil war. Now, they're so good at it by now that they've realized that if there is going to be a civil war, it's going to be their civil war. Do you get what I'm saying? And if there's going to be a foreign conflict, it's going to be their foreign conflict. Do you get what I'm saying? Does it make sense? The solution is that people need to produce things for themselves, and you need to be a threat enough, just like when a cop pulls you over on the highway and you're compliant because there's somebody standing there with a pistol on their hip, even though they're not pulling out their pistol and like fucking sticking it in your mouth or something like that, hopefully. Like that's not a usual traffic stop. But you're really lying if you're not considering that, like, there's a reason that I can't just like drive. I mean, besides the law, there is a reason that I can't just like be in my underwear driving behind you, waving my hand and being like, pull over. And then you're like, oh man, I better pull over. And you pull over. It's not because of law. It's because there is a mental acceptance that like there's a presence of the use of force there, like the potential of the use of force, like that is what is going on. Okay. Now in the United States, you're working to the point where it's, I mean, yeah, you may have AR-15s and shit like that, but most of the people that have ARs and stuff are just as clueless as the socialists. Like they don't understand what's going on. So what that means is that you can feel like you're safe with mass and numbers. Like, you guys can just be fucking tricked like a dog into like killing each other. It's so fucking easy. So what you have to do is like pull back, just be like, you know, start producing shit for yourself in a real way. Start making black market businesses that you're not paying taxes on and you don't report, and start providing the shit to other people. You need to start making a second income that is private. It doesn't matter how small you start. If one person does it, his probability of getting like targeted by the state is high, like for tax evasion or something like that. If millions of people do it, then that's a social movement. So you need to make it so that millions of people are doing black market business and not playing the fucking game. Just selling shit that people need. It doesn't matter what it is. It's more important that you do it than that you don't do it and you keep working at fucking wherever it is that you're working that's licking world government's ass. You need to start building a transition. It'd be better if it's slow instead of sudden, so that you're not just like getting your pants ripped off overnight. You start now small and then work your way up. While that's going on, you should also start becoming more dangerous. The way that you become more dangerous is not an AR-15. Everybody's got an AR-15. Nobody cares about that. The way that you become more dangerous is demo. Demo is the great equalizer. Demo is the reason that when we're rolling around in Ramadi with fucking M1 Abrams and shit like that, the Abrams drivers are kind of like, you know, nervous about certain alleys and stuff. When we're rolling around with Brads that can fucking shoot, you know, tracer AP, like shoot through fucking buildings like they're fucking butter, and you just see a tracer round just like going through multiple buildings and shit while they're engaging a target. It's the reason that something that's that badass is like, I don't know if we should go down the alley. That's the power of demo. The American people need something to equalize the distribution of respect a little bit. And that doesn't come in the use of violence. That comes in the potential. Just like if you get pulled over, it doesn't mean it's not like the cop is going to shoot you. You know, like that is not anything anti-police or anything like that. I'm just talking about the disparity of force. Just like that is a part of the equation of your behavior, it is a part of the government's equation of behavior as it operates as a abstract entity, a social structure, a sociological structure, the government. The behavior of the structure is I mean, it's entirely dependent on the distribution of force between its subjects and itself. And if you're like, they want you to just have an AR-15 because that, you know, they can just throw money at that, and it's you know, there's not much you can do. They can roll Bradleys through here. They can fucking bring in China. They can roll China through here if they have to. They can bring up South America and roll South America through here if they have to. There's a lot of things that they could do. You think that you're safe here? Like people are like, oh, behind every blade of grass. Motherfucker, do you know the history of Germany? Germany used to be like the United States. That ended with World War II, if you're not aware. Okay? Germany invented fucking everything. So all of the technology that we have that makes us badass as a country, like deadly and militarily, Germany invented that shit with a quickness, like fucking hyperdrive. They invented night vision. They invented fucking like the predecessor to fucking GPS. They invented fucking like rockets. They invented unmanned aerial vehicles. They invented fucking cruise missiles. They invented fucking ICBMs. They invented fucking assault rifles. They invented fucking like optical range finding. They invented they invented plastics. They invented fucking high explosives. Like all of your explosive development is Germany. They invented they invented fucking everything, and they were the most technologically advanced society and military in world history at that time. The most deadly, super badass. Now, they didn't have the numbers that the United States had, but they were, you know, I mean, there's a reason that they were able to go into so many countries in World War II, and nobody could do a fucking thing about it. They had millions of people from other places swarm and take them out. And it doesn't matter how badass they are, how many weapons they have. I mean, the disparity of force is great. They didn't have, it didn't matter. They can fucking do that here too. You better fucking believe it. You better believe that if they wanted to, they could have the Chinese take all the little fucking gizmos that they're making for you to buy on Alibaba and fucking eBay and shit when you're buying all that shit that's made in China. They can fucking flip a switch and turn those all into fucking boats and then make little shitty fucking rifles so they can send 1 billion people over here. You better fucking believe that they can do it, and they will do it if they have to. You better fucking believe that they can do the same thing in South America, and they can start a decade-long campaign in South America with propaganda and on fucking Telemundo, pumping their heads full of shit of like how they are the rightful heirs of the United States, that land, and how they're just evil Europeans that took the United States over, and that they've been a scourge to the world with war in the Middle East and destabilizing, taking over countries, and the United States is just really bad. And the rightful heirs of that land, because they wiped out the Indians, the rightful heir is the South Americans. And they can fucking pump that shit on Telemundo for it'd probably only take them a couple of years. It'd probably take them like 3 years, and then everybody in South America would be like, when were we taking the United States? And then they will fucking fund all of their central banks and pump their economies full of cheap money so that their war industry increases, and they just make nothing but fucking assault vehicles and come up here and they'll fucking rip through this bitch. You better fucking believe that they can do that. If you don't believe that they can do that, you have no control. What are you going to do? You're not going to do anything about it. You can't, maybe you can sit down and start whittling stuff in your shop. You're not going to make industry. Like, you're not going to make war industry. You have controlled war industry. The people are not in control of it. They will, if they want to, they will fucking wipe this place out. You probably want to know how to make some fucking demo. Okay, faggot? I mean, I'm just saying. If you're wrong about it, if you're wrong and you think that you don't need to make demo and that's a little bit over the line, well, number one, you're not thinking like an American is supposed to think, number one. Number two, what if you're wrong, Like, if you're wrong, you're not going to be standing there taking accountability for all the people that are going to get killed, that are going to not be able to do fuck all to do about the assault that's coming. You're not gonna like stand up and defend them. So as much as I'd like to cater to your cynicism about like, people don't need to be dangerous, people need to be sheep, I disagree. I think that the disparity of force is very important in keeping social order of any kind that's real. I think when you have a total disparity of a state that is entirely deadly and is able to exercise their will without consequence, you're just going to have an escalation of violation of humanity, human dignity, and legal rights. And that's exactly what you're seeing everywhere in the United States. That's what you're seeing. So it is important that when that gets, maybe you don't give a fuck about that right now because it hasn't happened to you because you're a good boy, but maybe that happens to your neighbor or your family member someday. You might want to prevent it by just having the actualization of like the potential of force. Just saying. No, it's not fucking, Luke, stop saying fucking IED. We're not making fucking IEDs. Nobody's making any IEDs. This is simply, it's going to be simply demo. It's just a demo. It's just a fucking demo class. That's it. Just trying to spread knowledge. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do it. I might not be able to even do it. I might get hit by a bus. I might get assassinated by Mossad. I might get, I might like have to go fucking work on some other shit and then I miss the window and then China invades. Who knows? It's a stump removal device. It's a science class. That's exactly right. There, there's there's virtually no argument for why not to do it. Anyone that would say like, "Well, that sounds dangerous," blah 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 blah, like you're living in dangerous times. Things are fucked. Things are fucked. Nobody has any trust. I mean, like the state has no authority at this point. It's just everybody's just like waiting around to see like how hard we're gonna get fucked. You're gonna get fucked hard. I'm telling you right now, it's coming. They're getting everything in order so that they don't fuck it up. They want to hit you real good. You know, they don't want to fuck around and like make a mistake and then have to pay for it. They're gonna want to hit you hard as fuck, and that is what's coming. That's why this thing is fucking slow. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, keep doubting it. You'll fucking watch it happen. I'm not gonna wait for you. You can fucking hang out and wait for your saviors to come. I'm not gonna wait. I'm just gonna assume that we have to do this shit on our own. The only thing that you can do when they start putting you on a list is just make the list as big as possible. Somebody says 9/11 times 1,000 is near, I think. I think you're right. I think you're right. Bottom line is that you can choose the state or you can choose the people that live here that are your people. A lot of people are going to choose the state. This place is going. We're on the highway to nowhere. Fast, moving fucking fast. We need to change the direction, and waiting on it to be done for us is not going to work. You got to do it yourself. You drink all the trash milk you want when you're free. Okay, I'm gonna go. You guys have a good night. It's a 2.5 hour stream. Have a good night. I love you. Bye bye.